The life of this bright young man, Fahim Saleh, has been brought to an abrupt end. What a tragedy. He was killed by his assistant business executive. It was not a premeditated murder. Then, was there someone else involved in the murder, in the planning? Because the police calls it a second-degree murder. So there was no premeditation. So the murder weapon was most likely in the apartment itself. So if the murder weapon was inside the apartment, who grabbed the knife first? I mean, DNA should establish that. So who knew that where knives were usually kept? If it was Fahim, then the use of the taser by the murderer was an obvious reaction. So second question would be why the murderer went to the apartment. They almost together came out of the apartment. So, Fahim was trusting him so much so that he even brought him to the apartment, or he just followed him there. So if he followed him there, that means if the murderer followed him into the apartment, then coming out of the apartment, having a fight, the question comes, so the murderer had no plans for the murder. The fight broke out, and then obviously Fahim was tased. Why Fahim was tased? If the murderer had intentions to kill him by the murder weapon and to tase him first, to kill him later, then it was premeditated. So why is the police calling it a second-degree murder? That something doesn't make sense. Unless, as I said, it was Fahim who grabbed the knife first. Then the other thing is, everybody's saying that Fahim was so generous that he even allowed this man, this murderer, to repay the money that he had stolen from him in installments. That is quite unbusinessmanlike of Fahim. Rather, the question is, was Fahim being blackmailed by this man, this murderer? Was Fahim being blackmailed? If Fahim was being blackmailed, did Fahim have something to hide? Then the other question is, why did Fahim withdraw his business from Bangladesh? Because he sold off his shares. Was it because of corruption there? When Bangladesh is now one of the fastest growing economy in the world, and that is his forefathers' land. He's quite well known about aware of the culture. He's obviously spoke the lingua. Rather, he withdrew his financial investments from there, and he invested in one of the worst nations to think of when it comes to investments. He chose Nigeria. I'm sorry if you are Nigerian, but Nigeria is at the top of the list of corruption in the world. When it comes to money laundering and everything, Nigeria comes first on top. And it's not a very safe country at all. And again, he invested in Colombia, another worst country to invest. When Colombia, obviously, ranks at the top in drug dealing. Why did he choose these two countries where he could have invested money in India or Vietnam or other countries where population is very dense, for example in Hong Kong even, or even China, Shanghai, or somewhere else? He had the money. Doesn't make sense. Then why didn't Fahim fire this man from his job? How can anyone keep someone like him, a thief, still in his job? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Again, this man killed Fahim, waited for 24 hours, then went back in to dismember him. Why? Why did he use his credit card or debit card, whatever, company debit card, whatever, to hire Uber and even to do some purchases of electric stove and everything. Doesn't make sense. Was he that dumb? And again, this proves that he was still on his job. That means he was still employed by Fahim. How could he be sure that once he had killed Fahim, nobody would be looking for Fahim for the next 24 hours? He was so confident that nobody would go to Fahim that he went back in after 24 hours of the killing to go back in and dismember him. How was he so sure that in the meantime nobody went back into Fahim's apartment? And I also learned that from the news that the neighbor called Fahim's cousin or the other way around, probably the cousin called the neighbor to find out about Fahim, and heard that there was a yelling or shouting or a scream from Fahim's apartment. The question is, why didn't the neighbor raise the alarm with the police? Or why did the neighbor wait to inform the cousin about the scream? And if the neighbor did alert the cousin about the scream, the question comes, did the cousin wait to come to the apartment? Or again, why did the cousin have the key? So probably the cousin was having a relationship with Fahim, I don't know, because it's quite common in our culture, because I come from Bangladesh as well, to have relationships with your cousin. But that's not the issue, but, well, it can be an issue. Then this man, this murderer, was so confident about the timing. I think Fahim's investments needs to be checked as well. I'm not happy to say that Fahim was above foul play. I think Fahim's financial investments need to be checked as well. I'm sorry if you are my fellow Bangladeshi and you are upset about the way I'm explaining these things, but in law and in such cases, nobody is above suspicion. Nobody is above suspicion. But I think we are on for some more surprises soon. I'm not so confident about Fahim being thoroughbred and honest man. No, there was definitely something by which Fahim was being blackmailed by the murderer.